me tell you what I'm going to do today. So I am on an 11 by 14 canvas. The idea, and let me show you my sketch. Here's my sketch, okay? And basically it's blue, it's like a light blue with a little bit of white in between, which you can't see because it's blended. Then some pale yellow that's all blended together to make this kind of background. And I'm just wanting to keep this one a little bit more simple compared to the ones I've done in the past with my stencils, just because the stencil is a very simple stencil as well. And it's just all about summertime, right? It's summertime. And so I just wanted to keep a simple background with our probably, hopefully, very colorful stencil. So that's the plan for tonight. So I'm going to I'm going to use some of this island blue. I'm going to use some pale yellow. I'm going to use some white. And then once I get my background done, we'll have to dry it, which I'll use a hairdryer probably to do. And then we'll start working with the stencil. Okay, so let's get started with that. So the thing I wanted to talk about as far as belief systems and, this belief that, I would love to be able to do that. I just don't have the creative gene. I don't have the painting gene. I used to believe that a lot too. I just don't have that skill set, that ability to paint. I totally believe that. And you may believe that too, but I promise you that's a falsehood. You absolutely 100% have the ability to paint. I promise you, you do. Okay, so I'm going to take, this is a 1.5 inch brush, and I'm just going to start doing my blending. And you want to make sure too, anytime you're painting, you want to make sure you have a paper towel. All right, so yeah, I've always had this belief, but I learned the secret to painting. I finally learned the secret. And actually, it's a lesson that I learned from photography, actually. So let me wipe that off. There we go. So I learned the secret from photography. And what is the secret, you might ask? Well, here it is. Anyone who is now great once sucked. That's the secret. Because as a photographer, I learned that your first 10,000 photographs are going to be your worst. Think about that for a second. Your first 10,000 photographs are going to be your worst photographs. Why is that? Because you're just learning. There's this awkward stage that you have to go through when you're learning any skill. The time where you have no idea what it is you're doing. No idea. Think about the times when you were the first time you ever rode a bike, right? Or the first time you ever tried to drive a car, or the first time you tried to ever cook your own meal, or anything like that, right? I'm just going down to the yellow part here. I didn't want any of that blue yet to mix in with my yellow. That's why I washed my brush. So anyway, think about that. Think about those times when you were learning that for the very first time. And was it simple? Was it easy when you first started riding a bike? No. I don't know about you, but the very first time I ever rode a bike, I went about 2 feet and fell off. And then I went another 2 feet and fell off again. Right? And that's just kind of what happens. You start down this path and you're trying something for the first time and you're wobbly and shaky, right? And you have no idea what in the heck you're doing. You know how you get better? Practice. Practice, practice, practice. So now I'm using this brush to kind of just try and blend everything together. Okay? That's how you get better. You get better by practicing. And the more you do something, the better you get. The first time I ever heard this concept was when I was doing photography, and like I said, they told me your first 10,000 photographs are going to be your worst. And I was like, I don't understand what that means. How is that even possible? My first 10,000 photographs are going to be my worst. Until I started photographing, doing photography, and I realized, oh, I get it now. Because when you're learning something, you have to go through that awkward stage of learning it. You have to figure out, for instance, in photography, you have to figure out, what does this button do? What does aperture mean? What does the shutter mean? What is all of that? What does it do? What's it for, right? I don't understand. Okay. And it took me some time, really, in all honesty, probably a good 10,000 photographs, to figure out what the heck I was doing. I'm just going to do my top here real quick. Okay, so anyway, so think about that. The first time you ever, started to ride a bike or anything like that, you always have to go through this awkward phase of trying to figure out what it is you're doing, right? And then over time, you practice it, and before you know it, you're going from your driveway to your mailbox, and then from your mailbox to your neighbor's mailbox, and then from your neighbor's mailbox, all the way down to the end of the street, and so on and so on and so on and so on, right? So over time, you get better at it, right? But that's just because you practice on a regular basis, right? And that's the only way you're ever going to get better at anything. And when I first started painting, that was the first thing I had to learn as well, was that I have to be willing to be bad in order to be good. And I am by no means a master painter by now. But if you asked me a year ago if I would be painting the kinds of things I'm painting today, I would have told you you're out of your flippin' mind. I never would have believed that I was painting any of this stuff. And now I am. And let me tell you, I am so glad that I gave painting a second chance, because I almost didn't. And now I really, really love it. I really, really do. Always make sure when you are not using a brush, you're going to do something else or whatever, make sure your brushes always go in to water. If you leave your brush out and it dries, the acrylic paint will dry on the brush bristles. You're going to ruin your brush. So always make sure you have water. Okay, so that's where we're at right now. So that was pretty simple. All I did was blue, a little bit of white, and a little bit of yellow. And as you can see, the yellow and the blue, when it started to mingle, made green, because blue and yellow make green. So that's the one thing, that's kind of why I used the white in between, so that it wouldn't go, there's a middle spot. I think it's husband approved. Is it husband approved?
Yeah, I'll do.
Oh, thank you. So excited. All right, so this has to dry before we can do the stencil. So I'm not a patient person by any means. So I'm going to blow dry this real quick. So I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to blow dry this until it's completely dry, and then we'll do the stencil. My sides are still a little damp, but there's a couple of spots that are a little wet, but that's okay. The most important part is the top here. So the next thing we're going to do, so the idea is, because this is just a background, we don't have really a story going on other than it's summertime, I am going to, it's dry, right? I'm going to put this pretty much in the center of the canvas. Oh, it just feels like it's not dry. But it is, it's not coming off. Okay. It just feels what it is. All right, so we're going to put this in the center Now, the type of stenciling that I'm going to do is not a normal stencil. I don't use a stencil brush and pound it into the stencil. I do a completely different technique that I have fallen in love with. I call it the 3D stencil technique. And it actually uses a gloss medium first, and then we add paint to it. All right. It can be a little bit more tedious, and it can, you have to be very careful. You don't want to get just medium on your canvas. But the results, in my opinion, are way worth it. Okay. So, but the only way this works is you have to use tape and tape it down. And as you tape it down, it could potentially start to buckle up. So you have to make sure it's laying as flat as possible on your canvas. So you just have to be really careful when you are he's in the kitchen cleaning up, just so you know. Okay, you have to be careful as you start taping things, okay? This is another reason why you need your canvas to be dry. All right, so we're gonna put it, oops. So I'm just gonna put it down, and then I'm always gonna leave a little bit up so that I can easily take it off, okay? That's straight. I don't think it's straight, hold on. Let me make sure it's straight. That would be nice. Like the nice straight canvas, right? Okay, I think that's straight. Okay. All right. So, like I was saying before, you have to be willing to be bad in order to be good, right? All right, so that's laying pretty flat. There's nothing bouncing. We're not the stencil isn't bouncing up and down. It's pretty flat, and it's very important that it stays flat. Okay. Okay. Okay, so what was I saying? So when I first started painting, I'm taking classes. You start with like when you're mirroring other people, you're mimicking them because you're doing class assignments or you're watching YouTube and trying to replicate the paintings that you're seeing on your YouTube channel. But over time, your voice and your style starts to emerge based on the things that you're resonating with as you watch. And that's what happened to me. Over time, I've resonated with things. I'm like, ooh, I'll take that and put that in my toolbox. I'll take that and put that in my toolbox. And so over time, my voice has started to come through, and then my style is starting to come through, and then kind of the type of artist that I want to be. But that took time and practice and a lot of really bad paintings. And when I say really bad, wait until later next week. I'll be showing you some of my bad ones. So think about, like, for instance, the very first time, not only that I drove a car, but I had to learn how to drive a stick. That was an interesting experience. And if you know how to drive a stick, you understand what it's like. You don't just get in the car, put your foot on the clutch, put your foot on the gas, scream the tires, and take off. It doesn't work that way. You put the key in the car, and you take that clutch, you take your foot off the clutch and put your foot on the gas, and usually the first 3 to 5 times I stalled it. Or if I didn't stall it, I gave everybody in the car whiplash because we're like, chong, chong, chong. It was bad. Or you're grinding gears because you don't realize that you have to get your RPMs up to a certain speed. So you're like, yeah, it was horrible. But once I got through that awkward phase, I practiced my stops and my starts, and that got smoother. And then I practiced my shifting, and that got smoother. And I practiced my hill stops up in Massachusetts where we have hills, and those got easier. And over time, I didn't even have to think about the steps in which I had to do it. I just drove. And from the time that I learned to drive a stick, which was basically at the age of 16, 17 years old, I have owned nothing but sticks until the car that I'm driving right now, which is my husband and I drive a truck, which is an automatic.
It's awesome.
But up until then, I had all manual transmission cars because I loved it so much. But in the beginning, I hated it. I was like, why am I doing this to myself? This sucks. So you have to be willing to go through the awkward stage, okay? And when you do, and you give yourself that chance to learn and to practice and get better, over time, you will, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is going to take our gloss medium and we're going to start putting it on our stencil. The biggest thing you have to be careful of is you don't want too much. You want it to be as fine layer as you can, it's nice and flat, but you want to make sure every bit of the stencil itself is covered, okay? So I usually do the whole thing of start with a little bit and you can always add. So I'll just do a little bit like that. And then you're going to take a palette knife. I actually happen to like the plastic palette knives for this better. I feel like they fly better. Okay. Still wet. All right. So I'm going to turn this a little bit just because it's easier for me. I'm right-handed. Right? And you're just going to keep this flat as much as you can. And you want to do smooth, slow strokes. Okay? Shut up. You want to do smooth strokes, keeping it flat. All right. Shut up.
That's dear. What a great comedy show. You might as well keep that shit on there.
Oh yeah, so great.
Then
Just
we can
go
do some
smoke
cooking.
your cigarette, would you please?
Well, you throw my chicken pound, do a little cooking and painting.
Yeah.
Then have some paint.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right. So we just want to spread this on. Now the biggest thing you have to be aware of, okay, is as you are spreading this, it's going up the full length of the palette knife. So as you get to here, you don't want this part on the canvas because then you'll get the medium on your actual canvas, and that's not good. And if you get any under the stencil, it'll pull your paint off. And part of the reason you want to do these slow strokes, you don't want to be pulling the stencil up while you're doing this because then that lifts the stencil and it will push the medium underneath the parts that are not the cutout parts. And then your stencil won't have a very crisp finish. Okay, if you've seen any of my other videos where I've done stencil, you'll see the reveal at the end, and it makes just a huge difference if you do it right. But the goal is to make it as flat and as thin as possible, hitting all the spots. Okay, oh shoot, see? That might have been messed up. I felt it come up. You do have to be careful. But this was a technique I learned watching a painter who I actually ended up taking one of them, sure, I know what it is. The acrylic flow painting classes. Wow. And she taught embellishing paintings with this technique, and I immediately resonated with it. I fell in love immediately. And I'll be honest, I have yet to do a stencil the traditional way ever since I've learned this method. So, all right, so I'm going to turn this a little bit. I'm going to pick the corners that don't have anything on it. And this way, I try to keep this on here as much as I can. So, what's the best way that you can go about, overcoming this fear or this belief that you can't paint, that you don't have the painting gene, as it would be, to do this? Tell me in the comments, do you believe you're this person that would love to paint, but have always been either afraid to paint because you just think you would mess it up, or you've tried before and it failed miserably, or you've wanted to try to paint, but you've just been afraid to try because it just seems like it's just too difficult. Let me know if you fit into any of those categories. Put that in the comments for me because I want you to know that I felt the same way. In fact, it's part of the reason I got into photography for as long as what I did because I had this belief that I didn't know how to paint, that I didn't have the painting gene, and it's not for lack of trying. I tried a couple of times, but they came out so bad and my results were so bad that I said, you know what? I guess I'm just not meant to be a painter. The problem is I didn't know the secret, which is you have to be bad in order to be good. Here's another example. Think about Michael Jordan. He's considered one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Do you think he was just born with that talent? Well, according to some people, I guess they probably feel like he was. But here's the real rub about that. The story is that when Michael Jordan was in high school, he was a horrible basketball player. Horrible. They told him he would never have any kind of career in basketball. So he proved them wrong. He wanted to do that more than anything. So he practiced for hours every single day. He practiced his fundamentals. He practiced his throwing. He practiced his dunks, his dribbles, going up and down the court, everything, every single day. And that is why he became one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He had incredible work ethic during college and through the NBA and the professional leagues. And people sometimes found him to be annoying because of his work ethic and what he expected of himself and his teammates. But look at all the championships he's won. So most people would tell you it was worth it, and he will tell you too. And he will also tell you that if it wasn't for the fact that he failed, he never would have succeeded. Because my friends, you're going to learn more by what you did wrong than anything you ever did right. Okay? It's a fact. And if you allow yourself to go through that awkward stage and realize that failure is not the end, failure is just information. It tells you either what you need to stop doing or what you need to change and do differently. That's it. And once you understand that, oh my gosh, it's night and day. Your world will change night and day. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I want summer to be bright yellow. I don't want it to be pale yellow. I guess the blue had enough. So I'm going to use this bright yellow. So now this is where things get a little bit more tedious and difficult, but it's okay. I'm going to get a fresh paper towel. And what you want to do, I'm going to switch to a smaller palette knife. You don't have to. That's just my choice. I want summer right here to be the only place this bright yellow goes. Now, this is not going to be precision. Don't worry if, things get on it in other places because this technique, it's kind of like a little bit of a blend. It's going to be cool though. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try and put a spattering here. Okay. And I'm going to turn this again. And I'm going to try and cover only the word summer. Now, when you do this, okay, you've got to make sure that your paint covers all your text because what will happen if you don't have any paint on a particular part of your text, when you lift it, you'll have a word that just has gloss medium and no color on it. So you can touch it up afterwards, but it doesn't look quite the same. So I try to do it beforehand. So I'm just going to put this. Now, if your paint gets on any other text or any other objects in here, it's okay. because it'll just add to the effect. I mean, it's really cool. And you want to, I have a tendency to go fast when I get excited because I know what's going to happen when this gets done. So I need to try to slow down. I actually need a little more paint here, so I'm going to add just a bit more. The yellow also happens to be transparent, so that, but just so you know, the gloss medium, even though it has this kind of off-white color, it's going to actually dry clear. So when you buy gloss medium, you need to make sure you're getting medium that dries clear, because there is gloss medium out there that does not dry clear. It dries opaque, and then it won't work. Okay. All right, so we have our summer. Okay. And then I'm going to probably should have done this first because I'm right-handed. So I'm going to actually turn this around. And I'm going to make the time. I think that for you, I'm going to make all this, well, this is blue here. Well, if I do the blue here, it's going to blend in too much. Let's do white. We'll do white. And the reason why I'm only picking these colors is because that's what's in my background, and I want to keep this a little bit harmonious. I'm looking for bright contrast, but not anything like out of this world kind of bright contrast. So I'm going to make this white. And if I had used the ocean blue here, because the ocean blue was already in part of this background, it would blend into the background and it wouldn't stand out enough for me. Now, some people, they want that low contrast kind of blending color, and that's perfectly fine because art is subjective, as we all know. So if you have this belief that you can't paint, or you want to paint, you want to learn, and it's just a matter of how you go about it, I may have a solution for you. I'm going to use some lime green for my flip-flops. I have created an online class that's called Acrylic Painting for Beginners. And the reason I created this class was because I wish I knew what I know now 20 years ago. Because had I known that, I would have kept going and I would have kept painting. And I think, I would be farther along in my art career at this point, And I would have been doing this instead of doing photography for 15 years, which, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it to an extent, but I didn't love it. I pretended like I did because I felt like I couldn't paint, and that was the only creative outlet I could find for myself. And I don't want you to go through that. If painting is something that you would love to do, I want you to experience it, because I'll tell you right now, when I sit down at this table, every single time, doesn't matter how many times I go and I do it, I end up just loving it. I love being here. It's kind of that old adage, I'd rather a bad day of painting than a good day at work. Right? It's true. And I'm going to finish it up with some of this blue. But yeah, I wish I'd known this 20 years ago because I would have been painting this whole time and I would be probably farther along. But the good news is I gave myself a second chance. And thankfully, because of my past experience with photography and the fact that I found better teachers and instructors and mentors to say, hey, guess what? You're not going to be perfect when you first get, let me try that again. Hey, you're not going to be perfect the first time you do a painting or the second time, or, don't think that every time you sit down to make a painting, it's going to be perfect every single time because it's simply not. Even professional painters, those that do this for a living and make it, and it's full time, that's all they do, that's how they make their income every day, end up with a pile of paintings that were absolute rubbish that they tried to fix and just couldn't. Nothing could be done with it. Happens all the time. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all those places, they don't show that. They don't show all the bad art. They just show you all the good stuff. And then we naturally compare ourselves to them and go, I could never do that. And maybe right now, I had my glasses on this whole time and I never put them on. That's funny. I'm just gonna put them away because apparently I don't need them. But yeah, no, okay. You don't have to have a perfect painting. You don't have to have a masterpiece after every single time. Okay, you just have to practice, and the more you do it, the better you get. And when you don't do something well, I'm just pulling this paint off, the tape off. Now you don't want to pull it up. You want to pull it off and keep that stencil on the canvas, okay? It's really important that we do that because we don't want to lift this up. So yeah, if you could learn that if you just practice, and the more you practice, the better you get, and you have a good mentor that helps you along and encourages you, you're going to do great, right? Okay, this is my favorite part. This is when the reveal happens. Here we go. Drum roll, please. And you have to do this really slow. Not just because of dramatic effect, just because you don't want to screw up the stencil. Here we go. Woo! Look at that! That's awesome! Here, if you can't see it, look! Isn't that fantastic? Ah, I love this technique so much. Oh, it looks so good. Now, the big thing is if you have the stencil and you can't wash it right away, all right, you want to make sure you wash these. I know a lot of people who have stencils and they don't wash them. They just like wipe it off, whatever. But this has that gloss medium on it. And if you don't wash it and you let it dry, you're going to ruin your stencil, okay? So I wasn't really prepared for this. I guess I probably should have done that. I normally get up and wash it, but since kind of here, kind of want to show you this too. Okay, so what you do is you put the stencil on a paper towel. Okay, let me move my camera so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so you put the stencil on a paper towel, you take some water, and don't spray your painting. And hopefully that your water is full enough. I'm just having issues tonight. There we go, there we go. Okay, you spray your stencil down, then you put another paper towel over it. And what that does is it keeps it it keeps it moist until you can wash it. But make sure you wash it. It's very important. Okay, so I'll wash that in a minute. So here we go. And I'm going to show it to my camera. Cool, right? And there it is. Super easy, right? Now this one was a super just simple painting, right? But this was still a painting. I still did it. And that gradient background is really cool. I can see my brush strokes and I'm like kind of like that. I didn't do a perfect blend. I was just kind of rushing through it, but I kind of like it. And I just love, 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 love how that stencil, I don't know if you can see it or not, but how that 3D kind of appearance is. It's so cool. And it comes out so well. And like I said, it does take time. It does take time, but it's so worth it. That's what I did with this one, the Happy stencil. That's this right here is this gloss medium, and that's exactly how it dries. See how that dries? It's all 3D-ish kind of looking. It's so cool. I love it so much. It's my new favorite technique. So that's it. That was simple, right? So I'll probably just touch up my sides once everything is dry. I have some dripping going on over here. So I probably want to try and clean that up a little bit, but I'll probably just touch it up after it's all dry and then before I varnish it. So that is that. But my bottom line is this. If you have this creative itch, right, and you go into Michael's or any craft store and you're excited to try your newest craft, what are you going to learn? And you go buy the art section and you're like this, and you're like, I'm not looking because it's art stuff and that's not me. I can't do that. Then you need to stop because that's what I used to do too. And now I go and I have canvases and I have paint and I have brushes. And I walk out and go, that's right, I'm an artist.
Yeah. Money, money, money. Doesn't say Rockefeller on the mailbox. Just saying.
I'm gonna post that video I shot of you earlier.
Negative.
Yep. That's
Shut up,
what.
on your dad.
All right, can I finish what I'm doing, please?
Yeah, I want to finish what you're doing.
Thanks. Love them. Anyway, just know that if there's a part of you that has always wanted to do this, I absolutely promise that you can do it. It's a skill set like anything else that once you learn it, you simply practice it and you will get progressively better over time. And if it's something that you would really like to experiment and look into and start learning, I would love to be that person to help you and mentor you and help you move along in your painting career or adventure, right? And in the description, there is a link, okay, that will take you to the page. It'll give you all the information about the acrylic painting for beginners class. And in fact, I will show you the painting that we paint in that class. This is the painting that we paint. It's only about 4 or 5 colors. It's not very, involved. I know it looks a lot, but it's really, really simple, believe it or not. And I take you step by step through the whole class. Really? Can't take him anywhere. Okay. So I take you step by step through the entire class. Okay. So you'll start by making the sky, then making the ocean, right? Then we'll do the stars. We'll add the clouds and the moon, the reflection, the ground, and then finally the palm trees. We do it all step by step. It's 6 different lessons that it's something that you can take your time, you can do in the comfort of your own home. You can stop, rewind, watch it as many times as you like. You can make the painting over and over again. If you do it the first time and maybe there's something about it you don't like, you can redo it. The class is completely yours for as long as you like it. So this is for you to start opening up to the idea that you can actually paint. Because I promise you, you can. I believe everyone is an artist. It's a skill set like anything else. You just have to learn it, be willing to be bad for a little while, go through the awkward stage, right? And then over time, you will get better. So if you're interested, go ahead and click the link in the description below. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate, leave a comment, or you can email me. My email will be in the description as well. Ask me any questions you have. I'm here to help you through anything that you need.
Yeah.
Okay? I want you to experience what I have been experiencing for the last year.
Yeah.
And that this has been something I've truly, truly enjoyed. And I love every minute of when I get to be here, whether it's something a little bit more involved or something simple like this one. Either way, I have so much fun and I want you to experience this too. So click the link below, Join me at Acrylic Painting for Beginners and unleash the artist inside of you. Until next time, bye.